Welcome everyone to the Unit 4 hearing for Gahanna Middle School for the National We the People Invitational. My name is Ryan Susky and I'll be your facilitator for today's hearing. In a moment, I'm going to have the judges introduce themselves, followed by the students, and then we will begin the hearing. Students will deliver a 4-minute prepared statement, followed by 8 minutes of judge questions. My microphone will be muted during the hearing, but I will be holding up the 1-minute end time signs. For that reason, I do suggest that you use the gallery view rather than the speaker view so you can see my time signs and your fellow students and judges. At the conclusion of the hearing, judges will give brief feedback to the teams and then we will conclude. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to your chairperson to begin today's introductions.
Good morning and good to see you again. We're going to start with the judges introducing ourselves and then we'll ask you to introduce yourselves and your teacher. I am Deshawn Whitaker, We the People teacher in Charles County Public Schools in Maryland.
And my name is Joe Stewart. I'm still teaching at Clemson University as far as I know. It's great to see you again. We had a lot of fun talking to you yesterday and we wanted to come back and talk some more.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diana Owen. I'm a professor of political science at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
All right, and we would like you to introduce yourselves and your teacher.
Hi, I'm Dalen Givens and I go to Gahanna Middle School South, and this is our teacher, Mike Browning.
Hi, I'm Ishan Rajgoliker and I go to Gahanna Middle School South.
Hi, my name is Madison Hall and I go to Gahanna Middle School South.
All right, well, welcome back and we are looking forward to speaking with you today on our second question for Unit 2. I will read the question. If a law has been properly passed by the lawmaking branches of a democratic government, why should judges have the power to declare it unconstitutional? Do you agree or disagree with Robert Dahl? Why? What is judicial review and why is it controversial? What has been the impact of judicial review on American society? Once the Supreme Court has decided that a law is unconstitutional, what power, if any, do the people have to change the Constitution? You may begin.
This is a controversial statement because though the Supreme Court judges are in favor and fight for the Constitution, they are not selected by the people. The judges can overturn a law created by the people if they think it is wrong or unconstitutional. At the same time, the judges are selected by the president, who was elected by the Senate, who were elected by the people. Judicial review is a very important ability that the justices of the Supreme Court possess. Judicial review is a process under which executive or legislative actions are subject to review by the judiciary. Judicial review can be controversial in the sense that cases involving judicial review, one side always loses and there's no compromise. Judicial review arguably could be one of the strongest powers that the Supreme Court has. Another reason why judicial review can be controversial is that the judges are not appointed by the people. Therefore, judges are making a final decision whether a law that the people decided is unconstitutional. An example of this is the Dred Scott decision of 1857. There was a 6-2 vote against Dred Scott, who was a Black slave who was brought into the North, which was against slavery and sued for his freedom. The South had 5 justices on the Supreme Court, and this led to a biased majority win for the Supreme Court. But there is another side of the argument. The job of the judges is to interpret the law and protect the Constitution and make sure that all state and federal laws comply with the Constitution. Actions judged inconsistent are declared unconstitutional and therefore null and void.
Judicial review has an impact on American society. It has helped to make sure that state laws follow the Constitution, otherwise they were ruled unconstitutional. In the Supreme Court case Loving v. Virginia, Mildred Jeter, a Black woman, and Richard Loving, a white man, got married in the District of Columbia and then returned to Virginia. They were charged for violating the state's ban on interracial marriage. When taken to the Supreme Court, the judges ruled anti-miscegenation laws unconstitutional. At the same time, some of these cases also give the people rights that are not directly written in the Constitution. In the Supreme Court case Brown v. Board of Education, African American students had been denied admittance in certain public schools, which violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. When taken to the Supreme Court, the judges struck down laws establishing separate public schools for Black and white students. This case ruled a state law unconstitutional, as well as gave African American children the right to attend public schools that had white children in them. When the legislature passes a law that contradicts with the Constitution, the judicial branch has to step in.
Once the Supreme Court has decided that a law is unconstitutional, the people do have power to change the Constitution through amendments. The amendment has to be proposed to Congress, and if approved, must be proposed by 2/3 of the Senate and the House. Then has to be passed by 3/4 of state legislatures. For example, Dred Scott v. Sanford in 1857. Dred Scott was a Missouri slave who went with a slave owner to Illinois, which is a free state, and to Wisconsin, which is a free territory, in 1846. Once Scott returned to Missouri, he sued for his freedom on the grounds that his presence in free territories gave him his freedom. Once the case reached the Supreme Court, Scott lost by a 6-2 decision. The Chief Justice at the time, Roger Taney, stated Blacks were not intended to be included under the word citizen and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges of the Constitution. The people had an angry reaction to the turnout of this case, in giving them the motivation to change the Constitution. This contributed to the passing of the 13th Amendment, abolish slavery, which was passed on January 31st of 1865. Another example of this is Minor v. Happersett. Virginia Minor of Missouri was not allowed to register to vote, although the 14th Amendment guaranteed the protection of citizens. Minor took this to the Supreme Court against a registrar in 1875. The court decided that suffrage was not a right of citizenship. Suffragists did come up with other strategies after this and created the 19th Amendment of women's suffrage later on, August 18th of 1920.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I would like to ask, if the courts did not have the power of judicial review, how could the power of the majorities and legislators be checked?
The power of the legislators. So what would happen is the legislators would have to make a decision that would be best for the Constitution and what would benefit the people and comply with the Constitution. Because if they did not, the people would be able to make as many laws as they'd like that do not comply with the Constitution. And the job of the Supreme Court judges originally with the power of judicial review is to make sure that all laws comply with the Constitution and none go against the Constitution and are fair enough for the people.
Okay, I want to follow up on that. Because in your testimony, you said the justices have to step in, and it fits with the situation you were just describing, where what if the justices see a law that a majority of them might think is unconstitutional? Can they just kind of step in and say, wait a minute, we were reading the paper today and we think Congress just passed an unconstitutional law? Or is the court hampered in some way from doing something like that?
I believe that the justices can step in because their job is to make sure that these laws that are being passed are either constitutional or unconstitutional, making sure that these laws are following the structure of our Constitution that was made. Because if, as what my colleague said, Dalen, earlier, if the people could just make whatever laws they could without the justices stepping in, making sure it was constitutional or unconstitutional, we would have all of these random laws that might make our society chaotic today. So I believe that with the justices, they should be able to step in to make sure, hey, we saw this and we believe it is unconstitutional, because they are just doing their job in the long run, making sure that everything is following the structure of the Constitution.
Going off of what my teammates said, I agree, because the justices are not going off of their own opinion. They're going just based on what the Constitution says, and that's how they make all their decisions.
So I want to ask about the selection of judges. As you said correctly in your opening statement, that the justices are appointed by the president and approved by the Senate. But do you think that justices to the Supreme Court should be selected by the people? Or do you think that the system as it is now is working?
I think that the system now is working because this could cause an issue because the laws that are made by the people could also interfere with how the justices are selected. Because as I said, the job of the justices is to uphold the Constitution and make sure that laws are in compliance with it. And if people were to elect these judges that could potentially not follow the Constitution, it could lead to chaos.
I disagree with my team, and I think the judges should be elected by the people. This is because the decisions that they make are for the people and they benefit the people. So I think the people should be able to elect the judges.
With this, I do respectfully disagree with my colleague. I believe that with my former colleague, what Dalen said, I believe that I believe that the system we have now is completely fine. If the people did have the choice to choose their justices, then the justices would be under the pressure of feeling that they have to make sure that the laws are unconstitutional, of choosing whether laws are unconstitutional or constitutional based on what their people think. And like my colleague Dalen said, I believe that this would lead to a lot of chaos in the world.
Thanks so much. So I want to follow up with that question. How do you feel about the life terms of the justices?
I feel like that the terms that the judges serve is okay because, I mean, yet some people might say that it is good to have fresh justices in the Supreme Court, but over time, as justices are elected for life or until they retire, they are there to prove themselves, and if they do something that's wrong and get impeached, then that can show that they're not worthy of being a justice of the Supreme Court. Yet, if they are proven enough, then they can show that their loyalty to the Constitution. Yet bringing in a new judge every year or so, or how many years based on terms, could cause disloyalty, and it could cause different spurs of outbreaks. And I feel like a straight line as they are now can lead to consistency and like not different decisions being made. Because if you have a different justice in the Supreme Court every so many years, there could be inconsistency with voting and decisions about if a law is unconstitutional or decisions with court cases. And I feel like if you have more consistency, I feel like everything would run a lot smoother.
Can we have the opposite issue? We went through a period not that long ago where the same set of justices had been on the court for 30-something years, the longest period since the early 19th century. So you raised the issue of maybe we get too rapid a turnover. Can we run into problems where we don't get any kind of change at all, and these 9 people have to go to work with each other year after year, and they may not like each other after a while? Could that be a problem?
I feel like it could cause an issue because if the justices all are like, if they don't like each other, it could cause different decisions being made, such as an example of the Dred Scott decision, when, as we mentioned in our presentation, there was a biased majority for the South because the South had more justices on the Supreme Court than the North did. So there could be different decisions overturned by either side based on the opinions of the judges.
To add on to what my colleague said, with this can be a problem, even though they have had the experience that they have had with each other. If they do start to deteriorate with their friendships, and they believe that they continue to start not arguing and having to go to work without liking each other, some people would have to be like, some people might be like, oh, well, I'm just going to make this decision because we don't agree on something.
Okay, Thank you.
I disagree with my teammates because
We've got time.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for your statements this morning. I really like that you have an understanding of what judicial review is. You've brought in some historical cases. The Dred Scott, definitely explained Dred Scott in very much detail. So I can tell that you spent a lot of time analyzing this case and seeing how it fit into the principle of judicial review. I also like that you brought in the Loving case as well as the Minor case. I like your answers about how you thought that they could be under pressure. If we didn't have life terms for the justices, they could be subject to wanting to get elected versus actually interpreting the Constitution. And that could be controversial. So I appreciate your thoughts on that as well. I like that you were able to discuss how people could change the law through the amendment process. And overall, just a very nice conversation with you today. And you did a great job.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed our conversation and wish we'd had more time to deal with some of the issues that you raised. Because when I like the mention of the Loving case. One of the things we wrestle with is just because the court declares something to be unconstitutional doesn't mean the laws are struck off the books. And so in 2000, an election that is most remembered for the conflict between Al Gore and George W. Bush, in the state of Alabama, the big issue was whether or not they were going to take the law out of their constitution that mandated no interracial marriage. So even though Loving had declared it unconstitutional, it was still there. That brings in the issue of the time dimension between, you talked about Plessy and Brown, you talked about the Minor case, but then how that was overturned with the constitutional amendment. What about the time in between? And in response to my question, I think there is a fundamental difference that judges are passive. The judiciary is passive. So a legislator can go out and say, I want to introduce a bill. The president can say, I want to introduce an executive order. Judges have to wait until a case is brought to them. Now, chances are there will be one if the attorneys figure out, hey, I think these judges will be receptive to this argument. But I, again, very much enjoyed our discussion, and I want to thank you for wrestling with these important issues.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation this morning. You started off really strong with your prepared remarks. Like my colleagues, I also appreciated the fact you had a really good grasp of the Supreme Court cases that you discussed, and then related them to the larger issue that you were dealing with in the question. And I think you also brought in, kind of the amendment process, and just I think this is a timely topic because there's a lot of talk now about the Equal Rights Amendment after many, many years might actually, pass this time. And so I think it's important to just keep in mind that even though there is that possibility to kind of change the Constitution and for the people to have something of a say, it sometimes takes a long time, and it's not that easy of a process. But that, I think, is probably a good thing, because we don't want to, like you said, have instability. And you use the word chaos a number of times, which I think that's exactly why we have a government and why we have a constitution, which is to avoid chaos. So I really thought that was you had some good points. I also really appreciated the fact that you had respectful disagreement, and you staked out positions that allowed us to see a variety of a variety of perspectives on the questions that we were answering. And I think you guys might have been enjoying it as much as we were because you were continuing on after time, which was a really good sign. So thanks so much.
Thank you.